Subintel. It's said that we're going to end up with millions more electric cars in the next few years. And all the batteries and the wiring and the processors and the charging points will need quite a lot of raw materials, particularly one material over others. Now, last year, the German giant Volkswagen tried to corner the market in cobalt, and suppliers of lithium are also in hot demand. And copper has never been so badly needed, it is said, and with renewable power like wind and solar being installed at a frantic pace, every turbine and every panel also requires these key metals. Now, when you add in the boom in consumer electronics, there are real concerns. Oh, here we go with the scarcity again about future suppliers. Now, with cobalt alone, it is estimated that by 2025, Volkswagen alone will need 1/3 of the current entire global supply for its electric cars. And massive new battery factories are being constructed, like Tesla owner Elon Musk's famous Gigafactory, and they too will be hungry for cobalt. Now, Mr. Bram Merton, a geologist with the UK's National Oceanography Centre, said that if all cars on Europe's roads are electric by 2040, and if they use the same kind of batteries as the Tesla Model 3, that would require 28 times more cobalt than is currently produced now. And at the moment, more than 60% of all cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. For decades, allegations of corruption and human rights abuses have swirled around parts of its mining industry, and last year Amnesty International said there were children as young as 7 working in the Congo's cobalt mines in nano man-made tunnels at a risk of fatal accidents and serious lung disease. Microsoft, Renault and Huawei were also there among the companies named as failing to check if their supplies of cobalt involved child labour. Now, the story of 5,000 dead from measles in the Congo is linked to this story. It's genocide for minerals program again. On Friday morning, the consequences of his efforts to sabotage, it is said, a congressional investigation that threatened his longtime friend, President Trump, Mr. Roger Stone, was convicted in federal court of 7 felonies for obstructing the congressional inquiry, lying to investigators under oath, and trying to block the testimony of a witness whose account would have exposed his lies. Now, jurors deliberated for a little over 7 hours before convicting him on all accounts. Now, together the charges carry a maximum prison term of 50 years, and Mr. Stone's in trouble. Now, personally, I don't know enough about Roger Stone to state whether his actions were that way or not. But what I don't get is how he went to court and was convicted that way, which is fine if it's all correct, but how another official who did exactly the same thing got a slap on the wrist and is currently still working for the State Department. Hello, James Comey. It's that inconsistencies again. Next two pieces are from Kenya. A small town, Kenyan town, situated close to the Somali border, and one non-government organisation NGO, has made a remarkable stride towards achieving quite a feat. The NGO, known as Give Power, is to thank for this new solar water treatment plant that they've built, and residents of the small Kenyan town of Kiunga have already said their lives have been positively impacted by this new development, and as a result of the success of the new solar water treatment, Give Power plans to extend its program to other parts of Africa and the Earth. Now, according to reports published by the world bodies UNICEF and WHO indeed, less than 2 months ago, 1 in every 3 persons does not have access to readily drinking water, and this water crisis is especially prominent in areas of the sub-Saharan Africa, which made it the perfect locale to install the first solar plant system. Now, the plant has been in operation now since 2018, and its main objective is to transform salt water from the Indian Ocean into clean drinking water. And after the success with the Kenyan town, they're hoping to expand this technology over to Haiti and also Colombia. Now, traditionally, it was always said it is rather expensive, the desalination process, as the result of a high amount of power usage used to carry out the process. Subsequently, it can be done in areas that have the resources to not only produce but also distribute that much energy. But this technology tackled this issue through what is referred to as solar water farms that produces approximately 50 kilowatts of energy stored by high-performance Tesla batteries along with 2 water pumps that operate 24/7. So the people of that small town are now getting proper clean drinking water. So kudos to them. Next, this is something we've been warning about several times in the show, and the Kenyan government risks losing the lucrative Mombasa port to China should the country fail to repay huge loans advanced by Chinese lenders. I think I was still in Cosmic Voice when I warned of this. China, because of the transfer of all power over to the East, or so they thought, was collecting dollars like they were going out of fashion, and at one point they had 80% of all the dollars that had been produced. Then they realised it wasn't going their way and started dumping the dollars by buying up all kinds of stuff and offering loans with a high payback. And this is how they've acquired several of certain countries' ports and airports and you name it. Now, in November, the African Stand reported on how Kenya is now at high risk of losing strategic assets over huge Chinese debt. And just after a few months, the Chinese are now about to take action, it is said. Now, the loans have been granted for the development of the standard gauge railway, and also at stake is the inland container depot in Nairobi, which receives and dispatches freight hauled on the new cargo trains from the seaport. Now, implications of a takeover would be grave, including the thousands of port workers who would be forced to work under these Chinese lenders. Management changes would immediately follow the port seizure, since the Chinese would naturally want to secure their own interests, and further revenues from the port would be directly sent to China for the servicing of an estimated 500 billion lent for the construction of the 2 sections of the railway. So this is essentially what happens. It's the Chinese and the control system, the Rothschilds, who want the railway. They get the country to pay for it. They lend the money. Then they know they can't pay back the money, and then they take the railway off them, or the port, or the airport. This is what they've been doing. In December 2017, the Sri Lankan government lost its Hambantota port to China for a lease period of 99 years after failing to show commitment in the payment of billions of dollars in loans. In September 2018, Zambia lost Kenneth Kaunda International Airport to China over debt repayment. Also in 2018, China has agreed to extend a loan to Botswana for rail and infrastructure, as well as writing off a BWP 80 million debt and the USD 733,000 debt after taking over the Sri Lankan port. Not good. Dennis Tyler, the Democratic mayor of Muncie, Indiana, was arrested on Monday and was executed at Tyler's home by the FBI. Now, Tyler is currently in FBI custody, and Tyler's administration has been under scrutiny for several years now as investigators conducted a federal corruption probe. And earlier this year, the city's former building commission was also sentenced to 2 years in prison after pleading guilty to wire fraud and money laundering. I suggest that will go a bit further than just one Democratic mayor and also one state. It's been going on a lot. The next two stories are both linked. Connect the dots. Of course, we had this week Prince Andrew has finally broke his silence on his controversial friendship with the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein in what was a primetime BBC special, which was shown one night this week after apparently 6 months of planning, really. And the Duke of York was interviewed by the Newsnight Emily Maitlis at Buckingham Palace, and Prince Andrew and the Epstein scandal was broadcast on the BBC on Saturday. And at this time when I picked this news item up, the BBC had not released any footage, but Ms. Maitlis said it would be a no-holds-barred interview with no questions vetted by Andrew or the palace officials. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. And it is believed that the Queen has given her blessings for the interview to go ahead inside the walls of the palace. And it's the first time the Duke has been grilled on his friendship with the American sexual abuser found dead in his New York prison cell 3 months ago. And he will also be confronted with allegations made by Epstein's slave, Virginia Roberts, that she was flown to London on Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, for sex with the prince, who she has called an abuser. Now, Prince Andrew vehemently denied claims that he slept with Virginia 3 times, including once during an orgy with 9 women on Epstein's private pedo island in the US Virgin Islands, but only ever in pre-prepared statements released by the palace. Now, since that interview, several high-profile sponsors or groups connected with him have disassociated from him, and then this statement came yesterday. The Duke of York says he's stepping back from royal duties because of the Epstein scandal has become a major disruption to the royal family. And he said he had asked the Queen for permission to withdraw for the foreseeable future. Bye. And he said he deeply sympathised with the sex offender Epstein's victims and everyone who wants some form of closure. And he also said, I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein. Very clever worded attempt that by Prince Andrew, except some people see through his carefully selected mind memes. That statement and the focus of this has been pushed onto his friendship with Epstein and away from his sexual activities. Have you noticed? It's a typical ploy that they use. He doesn't mention the girl. What he's apologising for is being friends with Epstein. That's not the real issue. If I was him, I would be careful. I hear there's a nice tunnel in Paris for sale again. On Tuesday, Meghan Markle secretly invited former First Lady Hillary Clinton to visit her at Frogmore Cottage, which is a Windsor home. And according to sources, the two women hugged during what was described as something of a fangirl meeting. Prince Harry and 6-month-old Archie was there, and including Mrs. Clinton, and who expressed delight at cuddling the royal baby. Makes it change some skin in its face, I suppose. And told Meghan about Chelsea's new baby son Jasper, her third grandchildren. Apparently both women have a lot of admiration for each other, and it was all very nice and sweet. Yeah, right. She was there to coach Prince Andrew. They were linked. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Monday announced a major reversal of the US long-standing policy on Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, now rejecting a 1978 State Department legal opinion that deemed the settlements inconsistent with international law. Now, the announcement, which breaks with international law and consensus, is the latest in a string of hardline pro-Israeli moves that are likely to inflame tensions between the Trump administration and the Palestinians. And administration officials said the State Department has been working towards this decision for nearly a year in coordination with the White House's peace team, which is led by Jared Kushner. He's going to get you hung, Mr. Trump. Get him out. Now, the official said the move does not change the administration's position that continued settlement construction is not conducive to an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal. Tick-tock, Mr. Pompeo. Two more pieces before we have a music break and then go into the intel. Benjamin Netanyahu was indicted today, as the show forecast a long time back, on bribery, fraud and breach of trust charges in a set of long-running corruption cases, which apparently throws his political future into doubt and heightening the uncertainty and chaos surrounding Israel's fitful and year-long struggle to choose its next leader. Now, the cases against Netanyahu involve allegations of giving or offering lucrative official favours to several media tycoons in exchange for either favourable coverage in news outlets or gifts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sounds like a CIA ploy to me, that. Final piece. As a week of impeachment rolls on, via the organised and disorganised circus tent, claims and counterclaims I see. Personally, I ignore 99% of it, because the whole thing is just like the Russian collusion. and the whole thing could be answered by pretty much one or two questions. Why is it okay for one party to collude and use powers of persuasion, but not another? I recall the Clintons using persuasion with MI6 to dig dirt on Trump via the Steele documents, most of which were fairy tales anyway. But it's not okay for Trump to ask another leader to dig dirt in the Ukraine. In reverse, it was stated that Trump was doing private deals and business in Russia, and that was not okay. But Biden and several other Dems and Republicans, I might add, who are actively doing dodgy deals and businesses in the Ukraine, is okay. You could close the whole impeachment nonsense and congressional hearings by answering those two questions. So they're wasting everybody's time. But the real problem with all of this is the treasonous media, who haven't got a single brain cell combined. You know, these people are just Duracell bots, wound up and given scripts and opinions to read out and then relay to a non-thinking, comatose audience. Perhaps we need to create a new meme with the media. Be truth, not lies. But here's the kicker. November the 10th, 1999. From the White House to the Senate of the United States, with a view to receiving the advice and consent of the Senate for ratification, I transmit herewith the treaty between the United States of America and Ukraine on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters with Annex. That was signed at Kiev on July the 22nd, 1998. I transmit also for the information of the Senate an exchange of notes which was signed on September the 30th, 1999, which provides for its provisional application, as well as the report of the Department of State with respect to the treaty. The treaty is one of a series of modern mutual legal assistance treaties being negotiated by the United States in order to counter criminal activities more effectively. The treaty should be an effective tool to assist in the prosecution of a wide variety of crimes, including drug trafficking offences. The treaty is self-executing. It provides for a broad range of cooperation in criminal matters. Mutual assistance available under the treaty includes taking of testimony of or statements of persons, providing documents, records and articles of evidence, serving documents, locating or identifying persons, transferring persons in custody for testimony or other purposes, executing requests for searches and seizures, assisting in proceedings related to restraint, confiscation, forfeiture of assets, restitution and collection of fines, and any other form of assistance not prohibited by the laws of the requested state. I recommend that the Senate give early and favourable consideration to the treaty and give its advice and consent to ratification. That was a deal done between America and Ukraine in 1999, allowing both countries to seek evidence of criminality in both countries. Who was it signed by? William J. Rockefeller Clinton. As Q said this week, these people are stupid. I expect we will have a lot more fun between now and then.